Hello, super excited today. My husband is not working from home today, so I can actually film and talk to myself. Not that it bothers him, but I don't really want to be in the way. It's just so good to have him home though, so I try not to complain about it, especially because I have like a lot of other things going on. But I feel like I've kind of got school. What is this? Just an eye booger? I feel like I've kind of got school handled, so I can talk about like what I'm learning and like what I'm going through today. I've got a little window of time before we have our first showing on our house. I'm really excited. Not that, the first tour is going to end up as a sale, but you can always be hopeful. Prepare for the worst, but hope for the best type thing. But I thought I would focus on like apologies because I don't think people really talk about apologies a lot. Like people have an idea of what they'd like an apology, but like what does like the research say on apologies, at least in like Western and North American culture? So what brings this to mind is that my last video, I covered some content a therapist made, and he actually came out and apologized for it. And what he said was, I used the inappropriate framework. He's like, I was talking about intrusive thoughts to talk about like rape. And he's like, we know that rape is about power and entitlement, so that was the wrong framework to use. And he was also, like, I made this discourse about men when reality, the conversation needs to be about women and their pain. And both those statements are true. But I do like the fact that he didn't apologize for, well, maybe he did, but I think I think it still stands that we need to have conversations about men's role in women's issues, right? It's women's issue, but men's problem. And you just can't have conversations that don't integrate both sides of the story. Not that that means both sides are right. It just means that you're listening and working and improving on one side. One side can be absolutely wrong, but you still treat them like human beings. And I think that's just where I was trying to go, at least with my argument. Like, I'm not defending pedophilia, but I am very interested in making it stop. And if I want to make it stop, then who am I going to have to talk to? The people committing pedophilia. Like, that's just so obvious to me. But what struck me about his particular apology was it was very direct. It was genuine. It was specific. He acknowledged the pain he caused, and he said he would do better. And I just thought, yeah, that's a good one. It kind of reminds me of like Lizzo when she used the term spaz, which is pejorative, and she apologized, changed her song's lyrics, and I thought that was another really professional way. Not only, was she clear and direct, saying, hey, this is what I did wrong, this is who I'm harmed, I'm sorry by it, and she then made amends to rectify it, which I think is also something that is part of a genuine apology. But not all situations, can be made right. Sometimes you do hurt people so deeply that there is a permanent wound, like with infidelity. You can very earnestly apologize and still lose out because of your actions. Sometimes making it right is allowing the other person to heal. Because that's what you can do. So I'm trying to remember, and I am going off the top of my head. I don't have like a specific article that I'm thinking of, but I think the things that were needed for an apology, again, in like the US, is simply genuineness, like true remorse, and try not to let it happen again. And I do know that second part was like beat, not literally, but like metaphorically beat into me growing up, is if you were willing to let it happen again, this is not blended. If you were willing to let it happen again, you weren't exactly sorry that it happened in the first place. You're basically saying, I wish it hadn't happened, but I will take absolutely no steps to ensure that it doesn't. And then, of course, it has to be, like, meaningful, which should be common sense. But there's a lot of people out there on the giving end who don't feel that way. Or, like, people who demand apologies, like, that's always been, like, a weird stance to take. Not that it's always wrong by any means. I do think public apologies go a long way. Even if the person you don't believe is truly sorry, it still might be beneficial for a large number of people. But personally, like, when you're in a relationship with someone and you, like, blackmail them saying, well, I'm not doing this until you apologize. It's like, so you're teaching them to just apologize to get what they want? Weird, but okay. Definitely not how I would approach things, but that also led me to thinking about forgiveness and what's necessary for forgiveness. And it's very similar. There has to be genuine remorse for real harm, and often an attempt to make things better. And there's actually a pretty big debate in theological circles if that part is necessary, because sometimes you can't make something right. You can't be equal. And if you think about it from a religious perspective, like, you can't get right with God. So, like, this whole, like, making it right with another person almost implies this idea of, like, you earning forgiveness. But, like, you can't earn forgiveness. And then, then the counter side comes right back and says, well, we're humans, we're not God. You absolutely can earn the forgiveness of another human. There's earthly law, and what we determine makes right before we have to talk about God's law, because we're just not, like, if you're religious, we're just not going to measure up to God's standards. So there's this idea of an earthly law. If someone wants to be forgiven, then they have to make things right. So if someone's apologizing, and I am making this assumption that when one apologizes, one desires forgiveness, whether heavenly or earthly, then they're going to have to make things right. And I think it's very, very interesting how many people never get there, which is kind of it's definitely a sad thing to say. But people, in my opinion, a lot of people have trouble admitting that they're wrong. And if you can't admit that you're wrong, are you really ever going to apologize? And that's, like, just, in my opinion, what keeps a lot of pain going on in this world. It isn't really the lack of forgiveness. It's not like everybody is out there, being John Wick or Liam Neeson and, having a special set of skills and going after people and creating a world full of vengeance. It's just the inability to admit that they're wrong and admit that their actions are harmful. It's not a forgiveness problem we have in this world. Well, we also have a forgiveness problem, but I feel like we have an apology problem. Like, people are unwilling to admit for apologies. If you want to, like, explore that issue, look at, the United States and their history of racism and the staunch opposition to apologizing or paying reparations to the African American community. Like, that is viewed as, you know, morally unacceptable to a large number of people, which is weird. Because last time I checked, again, reparations or paying someone money, making each business transaction is like the most American thing you can do. Like buying out someone's money, that seems like so American. Here, I fucked up, but here's a lot of money. But like, wasn't slavery supposed to be the great immoral thing? Isn't slavery what should get people fired up? Like I'm not coming out here and saying I'm for reparations. I am not again, I'm not qualified to talk on that subject. But that is one of my I think my more interesting observations, that people were like, it would deprive, you know, hardworking Americans who had nothing to do with money of, you know, nothing to do with slavery of their money. And I'm like, right. And what was slavery again in comparison to that? These people got weird priorities, in my opinion. Just weird. And there's not really a big political push for that either. I don't know what I'm doing today. Honestly, not talking about forgiveness and not talking about apologizing, for sure. Because I actually have to do a statistics paper today, and my statistics paper is on autistic and ADHD coaching. And I don't know what direction I'm going to take it with. Because everybody's going to be like, it's good. Neurodivergent informed coaching is good. And I'm going to like say something stupid like, what is neurodivergent coaching? Neurodivergent informed coaching. Like, what makes it neurodivergent informed? And I haven't found a really good definition of that. So that's going to be interesting to deal with. It's another area where people have trouble admitting they're wrong. They have trouble admitting they're saying things racist. Like, I forgot his name already. He used the word retard, who didn't come out and apologize for that. He's like, well, it's locker room talk. And I'm like, it was rude and hurtful, and it got out of the locker room. Why not apologize? Because people can't admit that they're wrong. And that's, again, such a strange thing. Like, there's no shame in being wrong. Everybody is wrong. But when you're wrong and you realize that you're wrong, you can move on. You can get better. You can grow. You can be smarter, stronger, wiser, faster. Well, maybe not stronger or faster. But, right? Like, you can have like these personal growth. But I understand why it's hard, and I'm wondering maybe if one of the reasons that I, you know, lean heavily into, you know, admitting that I'm wrong and stuff is just because one of the people who was kind of influenced that in my life was the type of person who could admit when they were wrong. So it was easier to, like, have me do it than for them to do, which, I mean, is certainly true. I'm not advocating for everyone having a little bit of trauma in their life, but sometimes I wonder if there are people who that would have benefited. Oops. Which is its own thought for exploration. Are there people who would be better people if they had had more negative experiences in their life? Like, corollary, do people need hardship in order to become better people? And I mean, I generally believe no. I don't think people need trauma. But could we do with a little less privilege? Maybe that's the answer. And I think the answer is probably yes. And my kids are coming back, so we're probably not going to finish seeing this makeup look today. But I think I'll finish out my eyes. so you can see the finished look. I only have lips to do after this. This is the palette that I used. Really pretty sunset colors. Well, that confirms my kids did come in, so I paused it, kept them off camera, and finished my makeup. So here's the finished look, as I promised. Thank you for listening to me and just getting ready with me and sharing the morning with me. Just remember, though, no matter who you are or what you decide, your beauty is on the inside. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.